Welcome, residents, to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is producer Richard, and across from me is the doctor himself.
Yo.
Going back to an old...
What's Gucci?
Oh, adding it a little bit more.
You know, I'm being conversational.
Adding the personal touch. We appreciate that.
Yeah. I think these fucking rubes will like that. Cut this bit out.
Of course.
Thank you.
Of course.
Good.
As my lawyer will attest.
I don't want all the fucking suckers that listen to this to know that that's what I call them.
No, of course.
So make sure that this is the bit you cut out.
Yeah. You can speak to my lawyer, Christian.
Yeah. Sure.
Man, how are you? So the day after the last Patreon episode, you were fine?
Some jelly legs, but I'm fine. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
There was no DOMs whatsoever.
No.
It's fucking bullshit.
Well, but it's like I said, like, you know, like the thing was, I'm maxed out on the push-up side of it. If you weren't listening on the Patreon, we were doing challenges last month. I had a fitness challenge to do that I didn't 100% do, but I did 100% surprise Richard.
Yep.
With what I did. But I didn't once I hit the thing, I was like, well, that's done. Like, technically, take another break, do some, there was more in there. Not a ton necessarily, but there were technically, I didn't max out. So yeah, no, I was mobile. I was up and doing things, and I went to work. And, yeah, it was fine.
I go to work and stuff after those, but usually I'm feeling a lot of pain.
What is pain?
I mean, yeah, I guess when you're out, life is agony.
That's it. Hey, that's where I live, baby.
Each week we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC while fielding questions from listeners like you.
And this week we start Doctober.
Ooh, nothing spookier than starting with a review.
Wait, do we? Or
Yeah.
did I just not take something out? We got a review?
Yeah.
I didn't put anything in there. You did this?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
We've got a review
Well, holy shit.
on YouTube
Really?
from Stacy Vanier,
Oh, thanks.
commenting on the 400th episode saying, I do listen occasionally.
Sorry. Well, no, I knew she listened because we were talking on the phone. I had to abruptly change the conversation. She was like, so 400 episodes. And I was like, anyway, yeah, we're doing 401 tonight. I want to have that conversation.
I heard you were saying your dad's dick is small, and it's huge.
Trust me. La, 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 la.
We did actually get a real review, too.
Okay, hit me.
I'm not going to say it, though,
Why?
because I don't pull those.
You don't pull the real reviews?
Yeah. That's
Read
your
the
job.
real review.
That's
Is it
your
on
job.
YouTube?
No.
On the...
Yeah.
Read the real review. Fine, we'll just read it next week.
No. Fine. Let me find it. Hold on.
I like how you're indignant about a thing you deliberately did wrong.
I didn't do anything wrong.
I-
I just chose to not
you didn't
do a
do
thing.
anything wrong.
No. Name one thing I've
It's
done
Confess Your Sins Doctober.
wrong.
It's
Yeah, we're just going to the Patreon.
yeah. Go to the Patreon at any time.
Yeah, that's every episode. So, a 5-star review
'Kay.
from Cactuar David
Ooh, all right.
via Apple Podcasts, Netherlands.
Whoa. Apple Podcasts.
I was waiting for it. That's Swedish.
No,
Dutch.
yeah, that's what the Netherlands is. The
Is it?
Dutch. You fucking idiot.
I thought it was more like Nordic, like Skyrim.
No,
kind of.
Think of the ultrasound tech in town.
Oh,
Please don't touch the table.
I just thought
He's
he was
Dutch.
I didn't realize Netherlands and Dutch was the same thing.
Jesus.
I hope we're wrong, and people are going to get really mad.
I'm not wrong. That's the fact that you didn't know that the Netherlands is where Dutch people are is a problem. You know what? Fuck it. This month, we're the Dr. Geography podcast.
All right.
And just watch the listens
Oh, yes. Skyrocket. With the subject, must listen for DC Comics fans.
I agree.
an incredibly entertaining podcast about the world of DC Comics. The Doctor himself has a shocking amount of knowledge. I would say it's a shocking amount when you hear that he's an expert and then you listen to the podcast.
How dare you?
About even the most obscure corners of the comics. And the hosts answer questions from listeners. Both hosts make for a, dare I say, dynamic duo, or perhaps world's finest. Thanks, Catchword David.
That's really nice. Thank you.
David.
That's a nice review.
I guess.
An actual review.
I mean,
I like how you went with like, here's just a random comment. I'll sub that in as a review.
yeah.
Not the actual review that.
Well, there's no other place to put it, so. And I wanted to talk about how your mom has heard what I said.
Yeah.
Does she know that I want to bang her? Or
This is so inappropriate. You can't talk to real people like that.
Yeah, but if I say it to their face, it's fine.
No, that's worse, I think.
Oh. Uh-oh. Anyways, this
I have
episode,
to dodge so many conversations.
now I'm not only making holidays weird, I'm making moments
You are like poison to my social life.
I was talking to my girlfriend today about the Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, I mean, God, the number of social circles you've exploded.
Mm-hmm. I mean, exploding is definitely part of the reason why.
Yeah. Oh, I'm aware. You think I don't know? If anything, I know too much.
If not you, who else knows what makes?
Truly. You think I don't know what makes my social system explode?
This week we're talking about nightmares, bitch.
I'm glad you got the joke.
Yeah. Of course.
Man, your nightmares, bitch. Yeah.
So what is it's just about nightmares in DC?
Nightmares, nightmare powers, dream powers, anything kind of nightmare adjacent, basically, because we're starting October, so we need a
Oh, ho, ho.
Happy Halloween.
That's right.
So we need a spooky theme. And so I picked nightmares because they're scary.
I'm so scared.
No, different podcast. Everything's a crossover.
You know, I'm not scared about is the lead.
I'm scared of what's happening to this
country. Let's go, Bled.
Yeah, listen to Ghostface.
All right. First questions are going to come from Facebook.
All right. Going to the face in the book. Going to the Facebook.
All right.
Almost did that in the Elmer Fudd voice.
Going
to the face in the book. Going to the Facebook.
Well, real news can happen.
Yeah, there's no disinformation here.
Especially since all those fake news sites have been taken down.
Yeah.
All right, first question comes from
Only a joke if you listen to Ghostface.
and live in Canada.
I mean, kind of. I mean, that's secondary to the why is Elmer Fudd like a right way. Yeah, at any rate.
I mean, I think it doesn't. It's not a huge leap to think that Elmer Fudd.
I thought he was an ally.
Yeah.
But
Braden Ketty asks, who is a character you would like to see get a dark multiverse variation of?
so remember the dark multiverse.
This is your metal,
Yeah,
your Dark Knight's metal,
that's right. Dark Knight's metal and death metal.
death metal, and whatnot.
So the idea of the dark multiverse is that like the regular multiverse is the positive matter universe. And again, they're all like stories, right? That's the idea of the whole thing is that they're kind of stories, narratives, and that.
Sure.
The dark multiverse is a place where like things are made, but they're wrong, and things
are twisted,
and they decay, and they break apart, and they become just the raw fuel to make new stories. And if one was ever stable and not even good, like morally, but just like stable as a story, it would ascend and join the positive matter, like multiverse.
Yeah.
But they're all like these broken, twisted stories that are kind of based on fears and stuff like that. So in those events, we see like a Batman who kills the Joker and then becomes a Joker himself. That's the Batman who laughs, right? That's, again, like twisted. Or like
so
one where Superman goes bad and then Batman infects himself with a doomsday virus to stop Superman and becomes this monster, doomsday monster.
Sure, yeah.
We see a lot of Batman ones because that's sort of the structure of those things. But there are all sorts of different characters have these kind of nightmarish, dark multiverse versions of themselves down there in the dark. So what's a character that you'd want to see like a dark multiverse version of, and what would you want to see?
Jimmy Olsen.
Oh, dark multiverse Jimmy. Okay, but like, so what's the thing?
Well, here's the thing
hook?
about Jimmy Olsen is that he's constantly encountering these fucking crazy things, right? But he's in a world in which Superman exists, and so for the most part, he gets saved from all of the craziness that happens to him, and
Right.
for the most part, he ends up okay at the end of the issue, right?
Right.
But in a dark multiverse thing where Superman doesn't give a fuck about Jimmy Olsen, he's
Right.
suddenly encountering all this crazy shit and like dinosaurs and stuff. So I feel like he's this like mutated fucking like monster of a man who's just
Right.
like got like a head of a dinosaur, and like his body doesn't like is made of a bunch of other fucked up shit,
Sure.
and like all the crazy shit that's happened to him has stuck.
Right.
And he's just like Superman.
He's never gone back to regular Jimmy
Yes.
after all of the different. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
And he just like hates Superman for not saving him, and he just like
yeah.
Yeah.
He's sort of like a composite Jimmy Olsen. Like
Yeah, yeah.
all of the weird adventures stay with him.
exactly. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So that's my pick. That are amazing.
Jesus. Who's a character I'd like to see get a dark multiverse version? You know, a lot of the ones that we see in those events, they're like quote mashup characters. Like in the first Metal event, we see like the Dark Knights is a team of Batmen kind of mashed, whose histories are mashed with other things. There's one where a female Bruce Wayne genetically alters herself to be Atlantean, and that becomes the Drowned. So it's like Batman and Aquaman put together. There's the Red Death is Batman and Flash put together. Like there are all these kind of mashup-y things.
Yeah.
So if I use mashup logic, I guess it would be interesting to see like who oh Jesus, you know what? I actually don't know. What would be a good thing for that?
Any characters like from mainline DC that haven't gotten the treatment?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we never saw like I don't think we ever saw like a Booster Gold
Oh yeah, sure.
kind of thing.
He's just a vapid celebrity.
Well, but you know, if we did like a mashup-y kind of thing or something, like, yeah, I don't even know where I'm going with that. It's funny because like we did see other ones, like they made these like one shots that showed like there's one where like Sinestro has this weird thing where he becomes both a white and black Lantern at the
sure.
same time. There's one where Ted Kord, the Blue Beetle, doesn't get killed before Infinite Crisis, and he becomes like the OMAC.
Oh.
There's some neat like one-off ideas there, but yeah, yeah, I don't know that I actually have one where I'm like I need to see.
Where like a character like an Aquaman Black Manta sort of like mashup might be kind of cool.
Yeah. Or let's see here. What could we do with this? I was about to say like I was trying to think of like who could I mash Martian Manhunter up with, because I like Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, I know. I was
and
thinking
like,
about that too. But
trying to
it's
think of that, and
tough.
I was like, we almost got a kind of thing in Death Metal, but it's just Lex Luthor, because we learned that like Martians and humans were actually split apart from this one apex predator species that
Sure.
Perpetua had made, and she turns Lex back into that
Oh.
Apex Lex that has all these Martian powers and is Lex Luthor and is this kind of like unified predator kind of character. But it's like so we already kind of got a mashup-y thing there.
Sure.
and then-
Yeah.
yeah, it's God, fuck, it's really tough. Maybe okay, here's one. An Adam Strange that kind of, I'm going to borrow an idea from a different book entirely. An Adam Strange that kind of like merges with the Zeta Beam and becomes this sort of like teleporting like energy omnipresent
Sure,
thing. That's an
yeah.
idea that they use very differently in that Justice League United book from years ago.
Yeah.
But maybe in this one, like, maybe it's like Adam Strange and Sardath get like blended together. Him and Alana get blended together in the Zeta beam, and they get connected to its power. And he kind of like loses his connection to any one point in space and time, sort of thing. Maybe something like that.
Yeah.
That's me borrowing an idea, which is a little bit of a cop out. But to be honest, I don't have one queued up really.
I mean, it's probably because, like, again, Batman's got so much of the best opportunities for something like that too, you know?
Well,
like,
I was also trying to think, like, who's got, like, colorful... Like, I mean, like, if you just did mashup things, like, a character with, like, colorful villains, like a big rogues gallery, like, maybe, like, Firestorm or someone. You go, so who are the villains? You go, like, Killer Frost. You go, well, how do I put Firestorm and Killer Frost together? You get some sort of, like, cold fusion monster, maybe. Like, there's probably something in there that would be kind of neat. But again, these aren't ones that I'm like, if they ever do this, I really want that. Like, I don't have anything queued up. I think you go to the dartboard and you do like the random mashup kind of thing. You know?
Sure. Maybe like you could do something like a super fast Grodd or something.
Yeah, which again is like slightly borrowing an idea we've seen elsewhere, but there's nothing wrong with that. But we kind of had a Speed Force connected Grodd in the New 52 and stuff like that. But maybe if this was like, you know, there's that old adventure where Grodd turns the world into apes. So maybe in this universe, Barry stays that way, but goes bad and then takes over Gorilla City. And then, you know, like that's the dark multiverse, like twist on it. So something like that might be kind of neat. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could work. All right, next question comes from Stephen Marion Almagro, who asks, what's the deal with Insomnia? Is this Stump Jungman?
That's a real stump of a question, yeah. So Insomnia is a character, a relatively recent character. If you're reading current comics as they're coming out, there's this event called Night Terrors, where all of these nightmares have been like made real and unleashed on the real world. Most of the world is asleep and sort of stuck between the realms of the waking world and like the dream realm. And this character, Insomnia, whose real name is Chris
Christie.
Yeah, it was Chris Christie. No, I think his name is Chris Lucas. He is he basically is connected to the power of nightmares and the dream realm and stuff like that. And he's on the hunt for this thing called the Nightmare Stone, and he's basically breaking down the boundary between the waking world and the dream world, and he's controlling nightmares, and he has sort of like psychic kind of like powers. He's connected to people's dreams, and he's just on this kind of rampage. It's a sort of fun diversion of an event. It's not like a big continuity thing. It's more like we take a month off from the regular issue numbering. We just do these events and their tie-in kind of things. But he's a relatively recent character. He was in Arkham Asylum in that. He has a connection to the Justice League, and a connection to like John Dee, like Dr. Destiny, like the kind of original dream villain that the Justice League fought. But yeah, he's after something kind of bigger and more powerful than Dr. Destiny was.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, let's go from Facebook over to Instagram.
Now we're going to Instagram, take some questions and answer them.
Jesus Christ. No morphine yet?
I wish.
First question from Hotel Sovi. You could check.
Welcome to the Hotel Sovi.
Yeah. You can check in or check out.
Yeah, the hotel is closed.
Yeah. Who asks, what's a nightmare that actually scares you?
Oh, just like a real nightmare?
Yeah, apparently.
What's your nightmare?
I mean, yours is like home invasion, I think, right?
It certainly was for a bit.
Yeah.
Because anytime I read
become a new father,
if I read too much about serial killers, like the last time that happened, I was reading the "I'll Be Gone in the Dark,"
Golden
Michelle
State,
McNamara book about the Golden State killer. And I got it like in a real like home invasion paranoia for a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, you know what's funny is that, like, yeah, as a kid, I dreamt a lot about like vampires. That was the thing that scared the shit out of me.
Spiders for me as a kid.
Sure, yeah.
Big spiders, yeah.
The things that actually scares me in like real life, and the things that like actually happen in dream are not necessarily all the same thing. And as an adult, it's less like spooky things and more of like you're like the people that love you are gonna leave you kind of stuff.
Right. Let's say though, for the sake of this, that if we're talking about like nightmares, we're talking about like the horror kind of side of things. What's something like that would still kind of scare you?
Like, I think like people chasing me is a thing.
Sure,
like
yeah.
that's definitely a thing that I've had, where it's like I'm in a scenario where there are like murderers and stuff, and
Right.
though I can defend myself, I'm still like running for my life, that
Right.
kind of thing. Yeah, but like otherwise, like I don't really get scary nightmares anymore. It's all like too realistic of what the things I scare
I
about.
agree. I don't particularly have like nightmares. Do you know what? Okay. Do you know what really creeps me out though? And I could see it being like turning into a nightmare because it's a really like simple premise. Is, you know, on TikTok when you see those like, it's like I don't even know what the games are, but they've modded them so like a giant picture of Michael Jackson is like chasing someone through a hallway.
Sure.
And they run and they're going through things and you just hear like hee hee and it like comes around like
So
like
funny.
that's silly or whatever, but like that again, the being chased sort of thing. I could see that as a very simple idea manifesting as a dream. Like the Slender Man video game scared the shit out of me.
Sure.
And there's like that kind of thing creeps me out. Like It Follows scares me.
Yeah.
Like just that idea of like something like persistent.
Oh,
that
it
you,
follows
like,
terrifying.
that you
but-
cannot stop
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not just that you're being chased; it's that you can't stop.
Yeah.
You know, like there's no version of this where
Ending. Yeah.
if you just get there, then you're fine.
Yeah.
It's just it keeps coming. Like that, I think is scary.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right. Next question from Keegan Steedman, who asks, of the Tales from the Dark Multiverse one-shots, which was your favorite? Personally, loved that Flashpoint one-shot.
The Flashpoint one is all right. That one's not my favorite. So yeah, like I said, they did these things called Tales from the Dark Multiverse. And because Dark Knight's Metal and the whole event was so Batman centric, these ones kind of showed you Dark Multiverse stories that were centered on other characters. So like I said, there's like a Tales from the Dark Multiverse, and they were also, the way they structured the one shots is that each of them was like a Dark Multiverse take on an event. That was the other piece of it. It wasn't like Tales from the Dark Multiverse Sinestro. It was like Blackest Night.
Oh,
And then what happened if it went
that's
different.
cool. I like that idea.
The Infinite Crisis one is the one where Ted becomes like an OMAC.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
takes-
I like that.
So they were like twists on events. They did a Crisis on Infinite Earths one that was like Alan Scott kind of centered. All of those, yeah. So they were all different events. I think for me, my favorite one, I really like the Blackest Night one. So
cool.
in that one, just like in Blackest Night, Sinestro takes the White Lantern ring. But instead of it eventually like him losing it and then all the Justice Leaguers or whatever becoming White Lanterns, this one he keeps it, but he partly dies. So he's got a White Lantern ring on one side, which is the power of life. He's got a Black Lantern ring on the other side, which is the power of death, and he becomes this thing called the Limbo Lantern that's like neither living nor dead. It's sort of like a weird, like kind of melancholic sort of thing, but
Yeah.
I loved the visual of it too. It was really cool. I liked that idea. That one and the Infinite Crisis one, where Ted becomes this big OMAC thing where he doesn't die at the hands of Max Lord. Those two are probably my favorites. Like I said, they did a Crisis on Infinite Earths one that's like Alan Scott centric. They did do a Flashpoint one. They did a Dark Knight's Metal one where like if the events of Dark Knight's Metal went different in the Dark Multiverse.
Oh, fun.
And in that
Weird.
one, Duke Thomas becomes like, well, I think they call him the Last Monitor. He ends up being like the defender of the Dark Multiverse kind
Cool.
of thing, which is kind of cool. There's some neat different ideas peppered through them. But yeah, for me, it's probably the Blackest Night one. It's the Limbo Lantern one. I think it's my favorite.
Well, Myra in Iowa asks, not sure if this qualifies, but I found The Blackest Night very creepy. Which hero zombie return did you guys find the most nightmarish?
Yeah, so I mean, Blackest Night, it's not like that really happened. It's not, quote, a nightmare, but it is totally in the spirit of a nightmare thing. It was a zombie story, right? These Black Lantern rings start resurrecting the dead heroes and villains of the DC universe. I mean, I've talked about it on other podcasts and other things. Like I think Blackest Night is maybe a perfect event.
Yeah.
You know, like really, even across all of the tie-ins, all the little like one-shot things.
It's a unique thing that's not like a crisis, but it is.
And
like,
well, yeah, it's not like a continuity.
Yeah.
Like we're changing continuity. It's just a big event.
Yeah.
But also, it was like across every title. They resurrected titles, and your boy loves like a smart gimmick.
Yeah.
And that's a really good one. Like they brought back all these canceled titles for 1 or 2 issues, so you could see all these how it affected all these different characters and that. And when you think of all those different stories being told, there's only a few that are like so.
Yeah.
Like most of it is actually like pretty good. It's maybe DC's best event. So Blackest Night is really interesting as this kind of big kind of horror story that's based on the lore of Green Lanterns and that. What's the zombie returns that I found the most nightmarish? I mean, just from a visual perspective, the Elongated Man, the Black Lantern Elongated Man is very scary because, you know, they're already doing like the rotten
I think that might be the same
thing,
one,
but
yeah.
like him being all stretched
Yeah,
and like
I think I might agree with you.
like that's a really horrifying visual. I think
Yeah.
that's a really scary one. I would definitely put that up there. Zatara, I think, is a good one. Anytime we bring like a dead Zatara back for a thing, they make him
We
look
love
pretty
that.
creepy, I think. Are there any ones that like stand out where you're like, oh man, that Black Lantern really like creeped me out?
Booster was cool.
Yeah, so in that one there's a Black Lantern Ted.
Yeah.
Yeah, in his little tie-in thing.
Yeah.
Black Lantern, yeah, for just a creep factor, I think it's got to be Elongated Man.
Yeah.
Because there's something about taking something that's already kind of rotting, drooping with holes in it, and then like stretching it, making it even less human.
It just it becomes horrific. Yeah.
That's a really good one, I think.
Totally. From that D the Geek, they ask, can the Corinthian see with his teeth, eyes, or is he blind?
So the Corinthian,
That's the fucking Joker Batman, isn't it? Or
no, that's the Batman Who Laughs.
oh, okay. What's the one without fucking teeth?
The Corinthian is from Sandman.
Oh, sure.
So the Corinthian, as a look, he has sets of teeth in his eyes.
Oh,
Like
okay.
no eyes, just
Yeah,
teeth, and then a regular mouth too.
Sure.
So everything is teeth.
Yeah.
And he is actually like a sentient nightmare. He was created by Morpheus, or Dream of the Endless,
Mhm.
who was he's not just the Lord of Dreams, he like is the idea of dreams incarnate.
Okay.
And when Morpheus gets captured and he gets kind of accidentally captured and imprisoned, accidentally captured, but then purposely imprisoned
Okay.
for like, it's like 100 years or 70 years or something like that. And in his absence, a bunch of his creations, including the Corinthian, run amok in the real world. The Corinthian is like an exceptionally powerful sentient nightmare who kind of goes out into the world. So that idea of like, he's got teeth for eyes, can he see? It's like, well, he's magic. He's a dream. He's a nightmare. So he can see because he doesn't really have even though he manifests physically, he can hurt people physically. He does eat eyes and stuff like that.
But his power is nightmares, right?
But
Like-
he is a nightmare.
Oh, so he doesn't give people nightmares.
He kind of is the nightmare.
Okay.
He's sort of like almost like an experiment Morpheus was working on. Like, what if I imbued a lot of power into a nightmare to make it really potent or whatever? And then when Morpheus isn't there to keep him in check, the Corinthian goes kind of rogue. And Morpheus, as part of him getting all of his powers back, has to get him back in line and reabsorb him into his own power. But yeah, so technically the Corinthian can see because it's just like magic, just like in a dream, like a spider could talk to you, or your house is also your office, or like
Biology doesn't really matter.
All these things that are impossible are true. So the same thing applies to the Corinthian. He is a living, sentient, like, nightmare. So he's magic. So what is in his eyes doesn't determine what he can see or not. There's a version of that where it would be like, if the nightmare was this thing can't see, but it can smell, that would be a character that can't see. Like, so I'm not just saying all nightmares, because they're magic, can see. But like, his thing isn't that he can't see. It's just that his eyes are teeth. You know what I mean? Like, if part of what the nightmare was the blindness, then that would be real for then a manifestation of that nightmare.
Sure.
But that's not his bag, so it's just that he has teeth for eyes and can see. He wears sunglasses over them, so there's always like a reveal of the crazy teeth eyes. Like, it's a really good visual. It's like maybe one of the most enduring kind of visuals from Sandman is that image. Really kind of creepy, a very sort of primal, creepy idea. And I think that's what works
totally
in like from our perspective as something. If you're writing a book about dreams and nightmares, like, the scariest nightmares are things that tap into something really like fundamental, something that is like unright, like, and you just go like, there's mouths where the eyes should be. You go like, no. You don't even know what that means. Like, do they all connect? Like, it doesn't matter where they go. It doesn't matter which mouth. You just know something is unwell about that idea.
I've got some feelings about things that are not white.
Joke from a different podcast entirely.
All right, next
Listen,
question from Delgado Andrew, who asks, are the dark multiverse worlds, unstable as they are, less real than the stable universes?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So again, here's the idea of the structure of the multiverse.
Yeah.
There are 3 main components. There is the positive matter multiverse. That is the parallel Earths we talk about. Earth 2, Earth 20, Earth 33, whatever.
Yeah.
Those are monitored by the Overmonitor, Marnovu, who's the monitors are like this super.
We meet again, Marnovu.
The monitors are like this super race, above angels, above gods. Like, they're part of this cosmology of reality.
Yeah.
Around the outside of existence is a single antimatter universe, which is a place of sort of like opposite thought. It contains things. It's a place of destruction, basically. That is governed by the anti-monitor, Mobius. So he's the second one. The third one, so we've got positive matter, we have antimatter. What's the third kind of matter? Dark matter. So dark matter is the dark multiverse. It's a place of enormous potential. It's like the things that have not been made real yet.
Sure.
And that is governed by the World Forger, the third kind of monitor. His name is Alphaeus. So down in the dark, what the World Forger does is take the dark matter and take the metals of creation and forges worlds, which again are stories, right? We're forging stories. And if they are stable, and again, it's not about good, because there are evil Earths in the positive matter multiverse, but if these worlds are stable, if the idea is sound, if it's not, like we were just saying with Nightmare, if it's not unright, then they ascend and they become positive matter universes. If they don't, then the World Forger has this as a dragon, as he calls it, that destroys those dark multiverse worlds, and then their energies are reconstituted into the next story he tries to make. right? So he's constantly forging, and you go like, oh no, that one's imperfect. You think of it like real forge. I don't know if real forging works this way, but you make a sword, you go like, oh no, I actually fucked it up. It's got like a real big flaw in it.
Just throw it back.
Melt
in
it
the
back
fire.
down,
Yeah.
start again. That's how the dark multiverse is meant to work. But at some point, the dragon of the forge, whose name was Barbatos, this enormous bat god,
Hey, I'm a bad god. My name is Barbatos.
oh no. Oh no.
Call me now.
Yikes. That might be the scariest part of October so far, is you thread the needle with that accent. Barbatos revolts against the World Forger and kills him. And without the World Forger, like, and Barbatos, like, doesn't destroy those worlds anymore. So without them getting destroyed and reconstituted, they kind of rot and they just kind of exist. And so we end up with these worlds where the Batman who laughs is just there, and as the world crumbles around him, he just still exists. And like they've thrown off like the natural cycle of things. And that's where the whole like Dark Knight's Metal event comes from, is that Barbatos is like, it's time for us to be real.
Yeah.
We're going to ascend into the positive matter. We're going to drown the positive matter multiverse in the dark multiverse, and we're going to be the real ones.
Sure.
That's kind of where it comes from. So, in a sense, you're right. Yes, they are kind of, quote, less real. They're unright. They're flawed ideas, is like their being.
Yeah.
Now, metaphysically, what does that mean? Because it's not like they're incorporeal. They fight. You can touch them. They like. There's an actual battle. They exist. They do things. The actions they take have impacts and ramifications. So you go like, well, they're real. They exist. They exert influence on the events of not just their worlds, but of the positive matter multiverse.
The worlds don't, though.
Only in that they produced these characters and stuff like that. But
because I think that's the question, right? Which is like the worlds themselves.
yeah, I mean, most of those worlds end up destroyed, and just various characters are sort of rescued from the rubble by Barbatos. But there is this kind of metaphysical question of like, they are technically less real until they occupy, like they actually
come into
take
reality.
their place in the positive matter.
The characters do, but yeah, the worlds
Multiverse.
themselves are probably not.
But part of the thing in Dark Knight's Metal is they were going to basically unmake the positive matter multiverse. If they sank that into the dark, it would become just part of the potential.
Sure.
And anything occupying the positive matter universe would become, quote, the real multiverse, right?
Sure, yeah.
So there is, I mean, like a lot of things in comics, especially when we get into like cosmology stuff, you go like, what does that mean though? And you go like, I don't know. But that's the idea. That's like the premise of it. So it is the reason the dark multiverse keeps coming up, and they even describe it this way in those events, is like, because they are flawed ideas. That's essentially what a nightmare is.
Yeah.
It's a thing that is fundamentally unright, a thought that is corrupted, whatever. And so the dark multiverse is all sorts of things that are basically manifestations of the fears or whatever of the positive matter reality characters. So yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, with that, let's leave Instagram and head on over to Reddit,
where everyone's nice and no one's ever mean.
First question from Rick to the E, who asks, has Dream ever had an encounter with Scarecrow or Insomnia? What would they think of each other?
I will say, I have not read every single Night Terrors tie-in, and I still, because I'm waiting for comics to arrive, I haven't read the finale of the event.
Mm-hmm.
I've read whatever the prelude thing is. I've read Night Terrors 1, 2, 3, 4, but I haven't read, there's like a one shot at the end of it. So I have not read that. But thus far, the most conspicuously absent character in Night Terrors, which is the event where Insomnia is the main villain, is Dream. Is who at this point is Daniel Hall. Morpheus has died, but Daniel Hall has become the new Dream of the Endless. And Dream has not shown up in any way. Dr. Destiny, who features in Sandman, like John D.
Yep.
Like they're making connections to stories and things that are connected to Sandman. we're talking about nightmares and like the idea of these realms, but like we've not seen Dream in all of the one-shots I've read so far, and in the main event as I've read it so far, conspicuously absent. So if he shows up in the finale issue, I haven't read it yet. That's why. It's even more conspicuous though, because who shows up in a prelude issue to Dark Knight's Metal but fucking Dream?
Yep.
Daniel Hall is in that. He's like, hey, there's nightmares down there. There be nightmares. Like he just shows up and goes like that. Like,
don't go
as the person that knows this shit. There's nightmares
Do
down there.
not go in there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, he does all the Ace Ventura bits.
Yeah, he talks with his butt a lot.
Yeah, but so he shows up in that one. Now again, in Metal, they didn't know they were going to do night terrors, so they're like, this is our kind of nightmare-y thing. It's not literal dreams, but we're riffing on that idea.
Sure, yeah.
Of flawed ideas. But then when you do night terrors, you go, like they're borrowing a lot. There's like Insomnia has these like minions called the Sleepless Knights that are like scary versions of people you may recognize, which is like, well, where did we get that idea? And then there's like, like we're talking about nightmares and shit. So like you're making night terrors knowing what happened in Metal. Maybe it's deliberate you leave Daniel Hall out because he showed up in Metal, but like Daniel Hall doesn't have a big role in Metal, but he's there and you go like, wow, this is like cosmic. If the Endless show up, it's like, it's everything, That's the reason, like the function of that. But you'd think like Night Terrors is like directly about the walls between dream and reality coming apart. And you go like, shouldn't Dream be here? Like, shouldn't he be on the front lines of this? Surely Insomnia is not that strong. Or if he is, surely Dream should be somewhere saying that.
Yeah.
But we don't, like, at all. He hasn't been present at all for that, which I think is weird. I think it's weirder than bringing him in. Like, maybe they're doing it because they're like, well, Dream would just fix it. But like, it's comics. Just make like
a reason why
the Nightmare Stone is so powerful. I hid it away for a reason, and then you just like,
sure,
it's comics. Like, do literally anything. But I think it's weird that he hasn't shown up
for sure.
So on the Insomnia point, no, we haven't had that interaction, and I think it's weird. On the Scarecrow point, I don't think so. There's a weird like the Dream Realm is like a realm in the sphere of the gods. It exists as like a metaphysical space. Yeah. But this is making me think of Comedy Bang Bang because Will Hines plays Morpheus on like from Sandman on that show a bunch, and they do a joke where they're like, "Is it only people in deep sleep, or do you get daydreamers?"
Oh, that's funny.
And I'm not 100% sure I remember if they ever deal with that, like in Sandman. Because when you think of what Scarecrow does, it's you don't go unconscious, but you just see your fears.
Yeah.
But that's just a chemical thing. Is that the same as dreaming? Like, even neurologically, is that the same as dreaming? And then when you're in a world where metaphysically there is also dreams as a separate construct, not just your brain doing impulses or whatever, then you go like, so then what is a daydream? When you're awake and you're just having a thought, is that where is the line where it's a dream and not just a?
But then also like
you know what I mean.
When you look at like psilocybin and like mushrooms and stuff like that, like are they entering the dream world?
Well, but then you get like a thing that happens in Sandman where you see like she was like taking like Sandman's sand as a drug.
Yeah,
and it starts fucking up the reality around them. Like obviously that's magic and shit, but they do play off that idea, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a very blurred line there. So I don't think, technically speaking, that Scarecrow and Sandman have crossed paths. Someone might correct me. Maybe it's somewhere in that Sandman book, but it doesn't spring to mind.
Totally.
But could they? Should they? Like, there's a really blurry line about what is a dream
Which could be an interesting
versus
story,
a hallucination. Yeah. Where do those realms intersect? Where do those ideas meet? Like, again, it's comics. I think you could do pretty much whatever you want. You know?
Absolutely. Well, in the conversation about Night Terrors event, Constipation Gandalf asked, One, will it pass? And two, in the Night Terrors event, what exactly is the...
Lie, you fools.
Yeah. What...
Or he feels it. He says, "This foe is beyond any of you."
Or he shits his pants because he accidentally farts, and he goes, "Full of a toot."
Did you shit yourself? A wizard is never late.
Yeah.
Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Yeah.
So you did shit.
Yeah,
You're just saying you did it on
He also
purpose.
says that when he comes too early. What exactly is the Super Reaper?
So, the Super Reaper is one of these sleepless nights. One of these like nightmare minions that Insomnia has.
Okay.
So, sort of looks kind of like a decayed skeleton with this sort of like thin Superman S.
Okay.
It's just a creepy look. It was
Sure.
meant to riff on Superman. Some of the other sleepless nights, there's Batgun, which is a giant bat with a gun for a head.
Okay.
Whose nightmare could that be, I wonder?
Yeah.
They turn Robot Man into a sleepless night briefly called the Rustbringer. He's just this giant kind of metallic monster, which is pretty cool. There's I can't remember all their names. One of them's called like Mistress Iron or something. Like they all have
Sure.
like kind of stupid fucking names,
Yeah.
but essentially they're just like they're nightmare creations. They don't I mean, they do exist. That's part of the whole event. That wall between reality and the dream realm has sort of gone away because of
Sure.
insomnia. But all of these sleepless nights are dreams. They're nightmares
Yeah.
made real by Insomnia and his powers. And Super Reaper is just one of them. Basically, they're out there trying to just anyone that's still awake, they're attacking because the world is asleep except for a few people.
Mhm.
The Aqua family is still awake because something Atlanteans.
Sure.
Batman is asleep, but Deadman is puppeting his body. So he's, quote, awake. Damien is awake because he's using all of his, like, various trainings and stuff. Zatanna is awake because magic. Like, there's a few people who are awake spread through the world, but there's not many. But yeah, so the Sleepless Knights are kind of hunting anyone that's awake, and they're looking for this thing called the Nightmare Stone that Insomnia wants. That he gets, and who knows how that goes because I haven't read the finale. But we've heard about a Dream Stone in Sandman and in old Justice League Adventures. That's what Dr. Destiny had. It was sort of retconned to be an actual artifact of Morpheus's.
Okay.
But Dr. Destiny called it the Materiopticon. It was a thing that could make dreams real. And then the retcon is that it belonged to Dream and he got it and corrupted it with technology and stuff. So the Materiopticon had a piece of the Dream Stone, but now we're after the Nightmare Stone. And that's all the Sleepless Nights are, though. Is basically like a kind of shittier version of the Dark Knights from Dark Knights Metal, and they don't do much. They're more just there for a creepy visual, a thing for random characters to encounter in their one shots.
Okay.
All
right. Next question comes from Armpit the Hero.
How dare you?
Who asks,
I love you, Armpit.
What is the Nightmare Stone? Currently, it's in the possession of Dr. Hate, as far as I'm aware.
So, the Nightmare Stone, I'll tell you what it looks like. It's a purple stone. It glows. It's vaguely in the shape of a skull.
Okay.
Because it's evil.
Okay.
It's twisted.
Oh, so fucking twisted.
Oh, from the twisted mind that brought you Saw 5.
Okay.
I guess.
Okay.
Do you want to read a comic? At least as far as I've read, they don't really describe too concretely what does it do. But the Dreamstone, Morpheus had poured part of his power into that. That's what gave Dr. Destiny so much power. It was one of the things that Dream had to get back. He had to get his sand back. He had to get the Dreamstone back. He had to get his helmet back because he had imbued those
Yes.
items with too much of himself.
Yeah.
So he's actually kind of weak without them. And when he fights John D, Dr. Destiny breaks the Dreamstone because he thinks that will kill Morpheus, but it actually releases the Sandman's powers that he imbued in it,
Goes to him.
and it goes back to him.
Sure.
Theoretically, the Nightmare Stone should do the same thing. Here's the thing. If you look at the map of the multiverse, heaven and hell are two separate metaphysical spaces in the sphere of the gods. So are dream and nightmare. But, and nightmare includes places like the Shadowlands. Think of where does the Shade or Obsidian go when they melt into a shadow? They go to the Shadowlands. That's part of, quote, nightmare.
Yeah.
Santa in DC Universe is part of, quote, dream. Does he exist as a literal dream? Not really. Or maybe. Who knows? But because they're metaphysical spaces, they're not like, these are our borders. You know what I mean? It's not that concrete. So these things mean different things. But for Morpheus, he's not just the Lord of Dreams and over there in the Elephant Graveyard, we don't go there.
Yeah.
He's, by being the Lord of Dreams, he's the Lord of all kinds of dreams, including nightmares. He has to make nightmares. That's part of the role. He is all dream. That's why he makes the Corinthian. That's why Brute and Glob, all these little weird corrupt fucking things that are in part of his domain. So to think of the idea that he made the Dreamstone, that there's I actually think lore wise, this is where this event falls down a little bit, is that it's not just Dream himself that's conspicuously absent. It's more of the Sandman established lore. Because Sandman it was a Vertigo book, but it's not in its own thing. It's part of DC.
Yeah.
Morpheus encounters Martian Manhunter, Mr. Miracle, Dr. Destiny, the Justice League, he's part of the world.
Yeah.
And we establish all these things. So this idea of this extra Nightmare Stone, even the Dreamstone was part of Morpheus's power, because ultimately all the power of Dream eventually resides in him. What he does with that is different, but why make... Dr. Destiny was using the Dreamstone to make nightmares too. That's the 24 hours, the diner thing, right?
Yeah.
Where what I'm saying is there isn't a line between dreams and nightmares in DC. They're all just a type of thing. It's how you use them. So the idea of there being a Dreamstone that was used to make nightmares, but there's also a Nightmare Stone, doesn't actually make sense. I think it's actually kind of stupid. It's sort of bad lore. It should just be here's another piece of the Dreamstone. Or oh no, we remade the Dreamstone. Or there should be something like that. But for some reason, the Nightmare Stone is a separate thing that was hidden away, and it amplifies Insomnia's powers, and he can make the wall between reality and dream gone permanently, or whatever the fuck it does. But to me, it's bad lore. It's sort of willfully ignoring the most interesting parts of Sandman, which is also some of the most interesting comics ever. Unless you got a real good reason, you really shouldn't contradict Sandman. It's sort of my take on it. You have to have such a good idea or such a specific idea. And my problem with Night Terrors thus far is it's very clearly just what if there was a nightmare invasion, which is a fun idea, but it's not good enough to start introducing things that fuck up Sandman. If you had an idea that was what if something happened to Dream and the nightmare part of him peeled out, then you go okay, well, let's explore that. But we didn't do that. So now you're just okay, fine, fucking whatever.
Sure.
And I think the last part of that question, they mentioned Dr. Hate. And I think I read something that's some new character
You haven't gotten to.
that is in this thing I haven't read.
Okay.
But he has the helmet of hate.
Okay.
Which again, let's introduce a new magic character. That's totally fine. I love a character that riffs on something else, I love a Reverse Flash or something like that. But you could tell
It's just using wordplay now.
It doesn't feel like there's very much underneath it to
Sure.
support it.
Yeah.
That's my take on it anyway.
Yeah, that sounds about right. From Dasbull23, who asks, who is more powerful, current Corinthian or the old one?
So there are 2 Corinthians, which is maybe also true in the Bible. I think there are
so.
2 books of Corinthians.
Yes, that sounds about right.
The finest Corinthian leather.
Nice.
No, that's all I got. So the First Corinthians,
Yeah. Okay.
is, like I said, a rogue nightmare. An experiment of Morpheus's that kind of runs amok when Morpheus is captured for 70 years. When Morpheus escapes and is going about setting things right in the dream realm and in the real world, he undoes the Corinthian and reabsorbs his power into himself. Later in Sandman, they make a new Corinthian. Because again, like I was saying, there isn't a line between I only operate on dreams. I don't do nightmare stuff here. All of it, the good and the bad, serves a cosmic function, right? There's a more agnostic view of these things. And so they need a Corinthian, like a real scary nightmare or whatever. That one eventually, I think, doesn't have teeth for eyes. I think he actually gets eyes.
Oh, okay.
But like the first one, runs amok. There's something about giving too much life to these scary ideas. Because they are scary ideas, they are less willing to just go along with stuff. They're a bit more selfish or a bit more self-serve. They're more ungovernable, maybe is the right way to put them. So there is a second Corinthian that I think eventually has to get undone. And that might not happen in Sandman. That might happen in one of the Sandman adjacent books. But yeah, they make a second one. I think he maybe technically is more powerful than the first one. But to me, you can't beat the OG. Just a scary character that ends up off leash, is a problem that needs to be mopped up, you know? And I like how they handled it on the show. They actually give him even more power on the show, because the show has to adjust some stuff from the comics. And I actually really like what they did with the Corinthian on the Netflix series.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, I'd go with the OG one. He's scarier, I think.
All right, well, that means we're leaving Reddit and heading over to the doc score.
Oh, fuck.
The doc score.
Just give me a sec.
Yep. 1.
Just give me. Hang on.
Okay. Hanging on. Because he's going to come up with a thing that he already had time
I've
to
got it.
develop. Okay, well then just do it.
I've got it.
Okay.
Let's get ducks to score. Let's to Discord the ducks.
Nice. Move on.
Why'd they ducks me scores when I scored a duck?
Watched that recently?
No.
No? Okay.
But I was like, I have already done Can You Feel the Love? I was like, what, first Disney songs that come to my head, go. And I was like, no, I've done that one.
Wow. I've already done that one,
Yeah.
which is a terrifying thought. That you've already done a Disney song.
I'll make duck scored out of you.
Didn't this used to be about classic rock songs? Anyways, first question from the doc score.
I can see what's doc scored,
It's doxing.
and they don't dox a clue. They'll scored in docs, and here's the doc scored line. Our doc scored's down to 2.
Can
Oh.
you dox the score tonight?
When I was a young doc scored.
When I was a young doc scored.
Very nice. Thank you.
First question from Only Just Dandon, who asks, just stop doing that.
No. I'll stop when I'm dead.
I mean, truly.
Literally.
What DC character would be the scariest to experience in a nightmare of yours? I would like an obvious answer and a less obvious answer, but equally terrifying answer.
Ooh, okay. You go first. Who do you think has the potential to scare you most in a nightmare, in a real nightmare, if you had a nightmare about a character from DC.
Anton Arcane.
Oh, fuck. Yes. Anton Arcane is like one of the scariest characters in comics.
Yeah, I think that's probably the obvious one.
Such a good pull.
Yeah.
Anton Arcane is such a goddamn good pull. Fuck. That's a really good one. So, yeah, for those who don't, Anton Arcane is the Swamp Thing's arch enemy.
Mm-hmm.
He was former like Avatar of the Rot. He's he creator of the Unmen. He's a sort of undead, like really terrifying necromancer, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, shit. Anton Arcane. That's a really good one. In a dream, like, see, in comics, he's always used more silly, but in a dream, I think something like Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man would be super fucking scary. You know, think of just like vines and a tyrannosaur head that's only half your face, like the body
Sure.
horror of him, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's really scary. That would be up there. Anything body horror, I think, you know, the Upside Down Man from Justice League Dark would be a good one. Jesus. I mean, I think there's potential for Martian Manhunter as a shapeshifter also. But I mean, that's employing the same kind of thing as Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man. The idea of like, what horrifying thing could he look like?
Yes.
So something body horror-y, I think. What was the other part of this question?
So an obvious answer and a less obvious answer.
I guess those were all obvious answers.
Yeah.
So now let's go less obvious answers.
Somebody from like the Zoo Crew.
Oh, okay. Like Pig Iron?
Like Pig Iron would be fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Fastback is still pretty scary.
Just a fast turtle?
Yeah.
Rubber Duck?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
any character like from the Zoo Crew
The
where
Zoo
it's like
Crew. Interesting.
in theory
And you
it's
can't kill
cute.
them.
Yeah, it's theory
Cartoon
it's cute, but
physics.
also then it's like a fucking cartoon character like in the real world.
Sure, yeah. I know just how to handle
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, that would be fucking terrifying, I think.
Okay, a less reasonable or less obvious answer. Who would scare me? Black Canary, if she like actually like wanted me, I'd be like, no, I talked to Big Game. I'm not
That's
ready.
too scary.
I'm not ready. I'm not
I mean-
worthy.
Yes, but
I'm talking Big Game, but I couldn't
Yeah.
handle it. Yeah.
Ambush Bug would be scary.
Yeah, it's the potential. I mean, less obvious.
Danny the Street.
I don't think so.
If a street suddenly started talking to you,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
oh, fucking arm fall off boy.
That's a good one, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think those would probably work.
Yeah, nice.
All right, next question comes from the Multi Sanchez, who asks, "What would be a nightmare for Superman but a dream for Bizarro? What would be a nightmare for Bizarro but a dream for Superman?"
I mean, technically, the answer is name a thing
Yeah.
because they're opposites.
Yes.
They right away do that.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
what
yeah.
would be like a fun
Yes.
version of that? Like, I mean, it would be funny. Like, they've done this in different comics at different times. Like, I've talked about the New 52 Action Comics number 40. There's a thing with Doomsday in the New 52 where he started like affecting the environment. Like, if he was like standing on the ground, all the plants would die, things would burst into flames and that. But he goes to Bizarro World and like where he stands, like plants grow and bunnies start like dancing and Bizarro's like, no, like that's ruining his world. So by the same logic, like Superman having a nice dream of like his amazing like, you know, family, like him and Lois and their son, but also like, you know, they've adopted two Philosian kids from War World and that, like they're having a nice like family picnic. That's a nice dream for Superman. He's just spending time with his family. And Bizarro, like that'd be horrifying. Like a pleasant picnic would be,
Sure.
you know, like that's a funny idea, right?
Yeah.
Superman watching his world get destroyed, Bizarro be like, me do good job. Like,
Yes.
you know, like there's
I feel like you could have like some sort of like monster made of kryptonite that is like killing
Sure.
Lois or taking Lois hostage or
Right.
something. and it's like Superman can't do anything about it. But Kryptonite doesn't even hurt. Like
no,
Bizarro.
green kryptonite doesn't do anything to
Yeah,
Bizarro. Bizarro gets hurt by blue kryptonite.
Yeah, so it's like it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
and maybe that's something. Yeah,
But I mean, like truly, just like pick a thing that Superman would think would be nice, and you automatically
Yeah.
make a bad thing for Bizarro. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's an opportunity to have a lot of fun with that.
Totally.
Like, if they did a Night Terrors one shot for Bizarro, it would be fun to just see something really pleasant.
Yes.
like, and that would be it.
I like that.
You know.
From Big Bear, who asks, "What do you think the Joker's absolute worst nightmare is?"
Well, we Okay.
Sort of get it with
sort of get
the
it in-
Batman Joker fucking night, right? Like,
Well, we sort of get it in Night Terrors.
Yeah.
There's a Night Terrors
Oh.
Joker 2-shot.
okay,
And in it, Batman dies, and the Joker's kind of like, well, that's okay. Well, I guess that's it.
yeah,
And then he just gets like an office job,
sure,
which is like kind of, it's more silly as a premise.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Like, I don't feel like that's really what the Joker's like.
I like the idea of it because I think there's good versions of that. Like in the animated series, there's the one where they think Batman is dead. And Joker has that kind of like, he sort of ends up kind of listless, and he has that line where he's like, without Batman, crime has no punchline. And
yeah,
I like the idea of that, but I feel like this Joker 2-shot, like, they were like, wouldn't it be silly if he was normal? And it's like, that's like, that plays it less like an actual fear of, you know what I mean? The thing I like in that 2-shot though is that it's the way Batman dies. It's that Joker didn't kill him.
yeah.
It's that Batman like trips and falls and dies by accident. Joker's like, "Are you up? Are you okay?" Oh, like Batman just dies for nothing.
yeah.
I think that's the kernel of an interesting idea, but I feel like that story doesn't do enough with it. Like the fear for Joker.
Getting what he wants.
Well, I think the fear for Joker is that he's not the architect. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's that thing of like, you don't get to kill Batman. I get to, like, the thing of like, when he's not the center of the story, why didn't you invite me to the secret
Sure.
society? Why didn't you, like, that's such a Joker thing.
But if
So I like the idea that part of his nightmare is that this thing happens that he is not a part of.
yeah, I think that if everything is chaotic, like if full anarchy reigns, I feel like that's his worst nightmare because then
Right.
he's not special, he's not doing anything, he's not in control. Like if everything is
Yeah.
chaos,
Yeah, which is sort of a macro version
Yeah.
of that without Batman.
Yeah,
Crime
and
Has
I
No
think that's the
Punchline.
thing,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like the thing that he pretends like he wants, which is like, I just want to pull the world into chaos. It's like,
Right.
you actually got that? Like he would hate that because then it's like he has no purpose. Also, like he's just like everything else.
Yeah, that's I mean, that even in The Dark Knight, you know,
Yeah.
like you complete me kind of thing.
Yeah.
He even acknowledged, like, he says, I just want to watch the world, but why does he want to watch the world burn? It's because Batman is there trying to stop it from burning. If Batman wasn't doing that,
He wouldn't want to do it.
exactly. So I think you're right,
Yeah.
but that's the bit of that one shot that I think there's the kernel of the right idea, but then they go just to this, like, what if Joker just had to do a normal day?
Like I don't think I think if he woke up and
it's not, I don't know, it feels like a squandered version of exploring what is probably like a legit fear of the Joker's, which is like, what if like I don't matter to him?
Yeah.
Because also think every time the Joker comes after
It's a Don
him,
Draper. I don't really think about you.
I mean, it's that,
yeah.
right? Like that's the big one, you
Yeah.
know?
All right. Next question from Lilith, who asks: should John D always be a D-list star, JLA villain, or do you prefer his more cosmic portrayals, Sandman, Arkham Asylum, etc.?
So John D, aka Dr. Destiny,
Yeah.
who had a piece of the Dreamstone or the Dreamstone,
Yeah.
which he then kind of corrupted and turned into the Materiopticon. He could use it to enter dreams, to control dreams, to make dreams manifest, all sorts of stuff. He's played by fucking Professor Lupin on the Netflix
Oh,
show.
okay. Yeah.
So goddamn good.
That guy's just great.
I like the idea that John D is like almost a nobody. And then every once in a while, the stars align and he gets the stone and then Dr. Destiny is like a big problem.
Yeah.
He's not just like a Dr. Destiny's over there.
Yes.
Like send the reserves. You know what I mean? Like we don't
yeah.
send like Metamorpho to fight.
Sure.
We sent the League. Like Dr. Destiny is a problem. But I like the idea
He's
that
not Dr. Light.
yeah, but I like the idea that he only crops up every once in a while, like very sporadically, and that John D is this little like snivelly, like that was the only thing that made him anything, you know, like, and it was barely his. It was an accident. He got it, you know. He doesn't fully understand it, which goes back to that thing of him trying to destroy it to hurt Morpheus, but it ends up feeding Morpheus's power back to him. So I like the dynamic of that. Like it's an even bigger gulf, I think, than other villains who are like, this makes me mean. So, like that's a common-ish villain trope, which is like, I'm nothing without this. And then,
Sure.
you know, it's the Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2 kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think there's an even bigger gulf, right? Like John D is like, we barely even mention him. Like he's just like, yeah, he's a guy in Arkham. He's like, he's no one.
Yeah.
But Dr. Destiny is like a problem. I really like that because I think that gives you like a window into like narratively there's this thing of like he's forgettable. He probably could have gotten help and then maybe he wouldn't have been as much of a problem for Morpheus, but they just throw him in Arkham and forget about him. And he's not the fucking Riddler. He's not getting out all the time. He's just like
without that
in the bowels of Arkham just forever. You know, like this event, Night Terror, starts with them finding the corpse of John D at the Hall of Justice. Like and they're like, oh fuck, John D? Like they're like all of them are like, oh yeah, him. Like he's just
crazy.
No one. And I do kind of like that. So I don't know about calling him necessarily like D-list, but like the thing that I find interesting is that he's not a constantly recurring villain.
Yeah.
We're not fighting Dr. Destiny every 2 weeks. He's not like Darkseid where he's always there. Or he's not like Luthor or Vandal Savage or whatever. Like it's, you know, like once in a blue moon, this guy gets a taste of the cosmic and then it's gone. And they just go like, back in your cell. Like, should we put him in the special cells? Like, we don't need to. He's normal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Without
like,
this, he's nothing.
It's not like we made the cell just for the Joker.
Yeah.
Like, we don't even have to do any of that pretense. There's no Magneto plastic cell. It's just like, put him in there. He's fucking fine.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
From the moral compass of the Doc Squad, they ask, what do you think about Grant Morrison's retcon of the Phantom Zone in New 52 Action Comics?
So the thing with the Phantom Zone is that in the New 52, they kind of, there was something like psychic about the Phantom Zone. And a big villain was this guy called the Phantom King, who was the first person imprisoned in the Phantom Zone, the first Kryptonian. His name was like Zadu or something like that, which I imagine is a play on Xanadu, which is also about dreams and stuff. But something about Zadu, and he got like kind of imbued with the powers of the Phantom Zone a little bit. And I think he could like manifest some like psionic abilities. Like he could cast illusions of people's fears and stuff. I might be slightly getting that wrong, but there was an idea of basically turning the Phantom Zone into a place that kind of like psychically fed on the thoughts of the people trapped in there. And since everyone in the Phantom Zone's a fucking criminal, I mean, what I should say is the Phantom Zone was always had a psychic component even before that, because there's like, it's another dimension. There's like native beings to that dimension, or at least one. I can't remember its name. It's like Aerith, or it has some sort of name like that.
Yeah.
That was always a piece of it. But then this Zadu thing, like, basically took the idea that like it was amplifying all the horrible thoughts of all these horrible people stuck in there, and kind of became this sort of nightmarish type place. The Phantom Zone also exists in the sphere of the gods, though, right? Like in Dark Knight's Metal, they see it as a membrane between the positive matter universe and the dark multiverse. They actually go through the Phantom Zone to get to the dark multiverse. So it exists in the same metaphysical sense as dream and nightmare. It is not in any way crazy to imagine that it can take some of those things on. Technically, the Phantom Zone is part of Underworld in the Sphere of the Gods, not part of Nightmare, but they're all, again, they're not like rooms, they're metaphysical ideas, so like they're not that partitioned.
Sure, yeah.
The only ones that are real kind of concrete are New Genesis and Apocalypse, that are technically in the Sphere of the Gods, but are like literal planets in the Promethean galaxy, which is in a different realm of existence. But other than them, like heaven, hell, other kinds of, like Olympus, Hades, the Phantom Zone, who knows? The land of Mira, the Shadowlands, like what are these places? The idea of them kind of bleeding into each other a little bit isn't crazy. So
totally
making the Phantom Zone a sort of nightmarish place, I think, is totally like lore consistent. I think.
All right. Next question from Lieutenant Commander Damiana of the Maquis, who asks,
I mean, hell yeah.
Hell yeah, so good. I assume nightmares get weaponized at some point by someone with specifically nightmare powers. So, are there any heroes with powers specifically to combat nightmares?
So, Insomnia basically has nightmare powers.
Yeah.
But again, it's about use. In Marvel, I think Nightmare is its own thing.
Yes. It's a very powerful character.
Well, a character, but also like nightmares are like a separate idea.
Yeah.
In DC, again, especially because of Sandman, there's this sort of agnostic view that it's like, doesn't matter if they're good or they're bad. They are dreams.
Yeah,
there are good dreams, there are bad dreams. We
Sure.
call the bad ones nightmares, but they're not different. They just have functions. And so technically speaking, Insomnia just has like some sort of oneromancy powers, like dream controlling powers.
Sure. Uses them for nightmares, isn't.
In the way that Dream Girl or Dreamer has dream powers, or how Sandman has dream powers, or So it's kind of less about like having nightmare powers, or like we need someone with dream powers to counter the person with nightmare. Like that's not really what it is. It's just about that. And then there again, because there's this thing like we were talking about the Scarecrow, where do your other psychics fit in? Your Martians, or Simon, or Grodd, or other people that have like phobia, like characters that have like illusion casting abilities.
Totally.
Or some kind of other kind of like, if you're tapping into thoughts in the brain, like where's the line between having fear powers and having dream powers?
Yeah.
Where's the line between having thought powers and having dream powers? Like, I don't think there are hard definitions of those. I think those are things you can explore. So in terms of like, who would you want? Like, this is another kind of weird thing with Night Terrors is like, I don't really feel like that's getting used. Like that idea, like a lot of this just feels like afterthoughts.
Yeah.
Afterthoughts or like recycled stuff from Metal.
Yeah.
Is kind of what a lot of this feels. So like Night Terrors for me has been like, fine.
Yeah.
It's whatever. It's not bad. It's interesting.
But it's your thing you hate the most, squandered potential.
I do hate squandered potential. It's a big,
which is so funny. This has been bugging me all day. It's so funny that you hate that so much because you yourself are squandered potential.
Well, no. That's a matter of perspective.
Sure.
You think it's squandered potential because you think I should want more,
Yes.
but I don't want more. I'm content. And the thing you don't understand is contentment.
Maybe
so you
DC's content with this.
I mean, that's probably 100% true. And I'm the you in this case, being unreasonable. But, but yeah, to answer the question, I think there's lots of characters that would be good to weaponize against a character like Insomnia who has these kind of specific nightmare tendencies and powers, but there's not really like hard and fast lines that way. And I think there's a lot of room to explore those things if you wanted to live up to your potential.
Last question.
Yeah.
From Crimson Raven.
Thank you for airing dirty laundry.
Yeah, because we've never done that before.
This is such a turn for us. I don't think I like this version of us.
Yeah.
The most entertaining version of us. I don't like it.
Yeah, no.
This will be too fun to listen to.
Yeah, no, I don't like that. Crimson Raven asks, since many characters have witnessed the worst the universe has to offer in real life, do you think their nightmares would tend to be more mundane things that affect them on a personal level?
Yeah, I mean,
as someone who can speak to that, yes.
yes. I mean, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe the other piece of night terrors that doesn't, like, bat gun. Like like Batman's nightmare is a bat with a gun for a head. Like,
shut the fuck up.
It's just kind of like, okay, man.
Yeah.
Like I get it from a certain perspective where it's meant to be clunky because it's just this guy who's like, I'm gonna scare you. Like, Insomnia made them, so I kind of get it, but the idea that like Batman's not just gonna laugh in the face of Batgun,
yes,
is so like there are so many more psychological ways of getting it. 100%. I think a lot of the problem with Night Terrors is it wants to be scary. And so even when it delves somewhat into the psychological stuff, like Jason Todd, what's the thing that scares him the most? Like, in his thing, he's just getting crowbarred all the time by the Red Hood with a Joker smile on it. It's like, that's way too literal.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be more about being alone, being on the outside. Like, we talk through some of that stuff in those one-shots, but it's just not quite right. You know what I mean? And so I actually think they're 100% right in this question, which is like, the thing that's more scary to Jason is something a lot quieter than fight a bunch of the guy that killed you.
Yeah, like
that's that's almost a distraction. Like the thing, what is the number one coping mechanism Jason has? It's like fight.
Yeah.
So his nightmare is the thing that helps him deal with it?
Yeah.
No. If you want to give him a nightmare, there's nothing for him to fight. He's got to sit with himself.
Or like he's punching and his hands can't make fists or something, right? Like,
I mean, I don't even think losing a fight though is scary. I think it's the idea of like his nightmare is like look in the mirror and love yourself.
Sure.
Like there's a sort of, this event in general has fallen into the trap of like, what if the scaries came out?
Sure.
And I actually I'm super on board for that. But let's not pretend like this is a psychological attack by insomnia. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
The event's trying to have it both ways, which is like, I know the thing that scares you. It's like bat with a gun for a head.
Yeah.
It's like, just make it like, I can make anything real. Good luck. Just make it like that. And then you can have all the scaries you want. But then it's, you know what I mean? Like, there's a different approach to this thing where I think that stuff is fine. And you can have your fun with it.
Totally.
From an art perspective and a design perspective. And I think the problem with this is we wanted to have the art fun, and then we go like, oh, you're scared of the Red Hood, I guess. Well, just it's not your memory, though. It's actually like kind of a more cartoony version of it. And I'm setting you up to do the thing that you do to cope with it anyway. So
is that scary?
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's just kind of like,
are you scared?
Yeah. So yeah, I do think the more mundane might even be the wrong word for it, but like something more personal. And I think in a lot of cases, probably more quiet. What are the thing we were talking about with the Joker? Like, ultimately, the Joker's fear is not mattering to Batman.
Yeah.
That kernel. Now, what does that look like? What is the actual structure of that nightmare? Who knows? There's a bunch of different ways to do that. But that's the kernel of it. And that's a relatively quiet fear. That's not like, I'm afraid of train explosions. Like, it's not like,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that was the last question, which means we'd love to hear from you residents. Why don't you send in a question for next week's episode?
Next week's episode, we're talking about shadow powers.
Whoa.
It's characters that are...
Surprised we haven't done that.
Umbra kinetic.
Yeah.
So that, anyone that's like, has like actual shadow powers or like shadow technology, because that's part of it too. So lots of different villains and heroes who have a connection to shadows and darkness as powers.
No parents.
Darkness, no parents.
You can reach out to us through our various social media platforms.
Dr. DC Podcast on the platforms.
Yes. Doc phone is also always open, 208-917-DCEU.
Yeah. 3238. We did that in the wrong order.
Yep.
This is my nightmare.
Yeah. Go to our website, drdcpodcast.com or .ca. Give us a 5-star review, and we will read it on a future episode.
Yeah, give us a 5-star review, and we'll just pick a random comment on YouTube. We'll read that, and we won't read your review.
I mean, if you're Reed's mom, I'll basically do anything you ask.
Easy.
Also, for $1, $5, or $7, you can get access to our Patreon.
That's right, baby. Patreon.com/DrDC. There's all 3 of those levels. They all give you access to the Docscord, our awesome Discord fan community. And at the higher levels, you get bonus episodes. You get the double dose every week. And at the highest level, you get extra episodes of rewatch podcasts like Toretto Talks, or the current one, Bonding Time, where we're going through every James Bond movie. Plus, there's theme polls and all sorts of other fun stuff that helps to support us.
Well, speaking of extra audio content, we have a whole other podcast.
That's right. If you want to hear where alt-right Elmer Fudd comes from,
go
listen to Ghostfacers, a Supernatural rewatch. We're going through every single episode of the CW Supernatural. We talk real-world monster lore, behind-the-scenes stuff about the show. It's a ton of fun.
I also have my own podcast. I talk about the Looney Tunes in the White House.
Jesus.
Ciao, ciao.
Adios.
All the superheroes, they always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure, they are men of might.
This was a Brain Freeze podcast.